as we know, the Israelis claim that they will disarm after Hamas is disarmed. So the invading aggressor occupation state says that they will actually, no, they won't even say they'll disarm. They're going to wait to see if Hamas disarms. They need to see that first. They're never going to disarm. Of course they're not going to disarm. And here's this report. Kushner and Netanyahu, well, of course, they had an agreement. They met with the Israeli government. They hung out with Benjamin Netanyahu. You can see him in the shot from Anti-War. And guess what happened? That's right. As you can see there, Israel will continue the Gaza strikes because, you know, evidently those little pieces of concrete in the bone are not small enough yet.
Agree that Israel will continue strikes in Gaza. So a meeting between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who's a longtime family friend of Netanyahu, known him since he was a child. Anyway, a meeting between them ended with an agreement that Israel will continue strikes, what they call targeted strikes in Gaza. And this was reported by Haaretz. And of course, if you've been following the news in Gaza for the last 10 months since the so-called ceasefire deal was signed, you know that these so-called targeted strikes have killed over 1,200 people, including at least 300 children. So, you know, this comes, this agreement on Israel continuing attacks in Gaza comes the day after Kushner met with Hamas officials in Egypt who told him that they're committed to the framework that the U.S. and Israel have, not the U.S. and Israel, that the U.S. and the so-called Board of Peace have announced, while Israel is the one saying that they reject it. And there's a lot of reports that came out of this meeting that was apparently 3 to 4 hours long. All these reports in Israeli media about kind of different aspects of it. One of the things was that Israeli officials are saying that they said, you know, none of this is going to happen until, you know, Israel's not going to withdraw, not going to pull back an inch from Gaza until Hamas is fully disarmed, which, I mean, as far as I know, Hamas has not agreed to that. And the deal that the U.S. unveiled was that the two things would happen simultaneously. Now, we saw the Board of Peace walked back on that after meeting with Netanyahu. But even then, Netanyahu's still rejecting the deal. So it's not a good sign. And afterwards, I meant to say, Kushner did an interview on Fox News. We'll play a little clip from it where he used language that suggested that the U.S. is adopting this, that there has to be demilitarization, disarmament before Israel withdraws. So not a good sign. And again, I want to play this clip from his interview that he did with Fox News after the Netanyahu meeting. This was posted on X by Chris Menahan. And he says some very concerning things here. It's about a minute long. I'll just play the whole thing. But one thing he says is that, we're not going to restrict Israel's right to defend itself, which of course is how they frame any sort of Israeli attacks, even though there's been no attacks from Gaza against Israel since the ceasefire deal was signed. But anyway, let's play the clip here.
We're very committed to the fact that we have a plan to rebuild Gaza, but we will not allow Gaza to be rebuilt until the demilitarization occurs. Nobody wants to put more money into a place that's gone on for so long until if it's just going to be taken over by terrorists or blown up again. We're also not going to restrict Israel's right to defend itself if there are any imminent threats. And so we had to clarify what that means. We could be seeing progress, as much as in as little as 30 days, hopefully on, starting to take some of the weapons out and hopefully, filling in some of the tunnels as well in the next 60 to 90 days as well. So progress could come quite soon, but we do need cooperation from both sides. And we're going to hopefully get through. But we've made a lot of progress to get here. For Israel, we think this is a win-win situation because if Hamas actually gives over the weapons and the tunnels, willingly over the next 60 to 90 days, that obviously would be the elimination of a huge security threat for Israel, almost an unthinkable achievement. And if they don't follow through now on their commitment, everyone will see that they're not genuine about peace, and then Israel will have a lot more support from the U.S. and others to go and finish the job in the appropriate way.
So he's saying there that it's a win-win for Israel because either Hamas gives up its weapons or they don't, and then Israel will have the backing of the U.S. to finish the job. What does finish the job in Gaza mean? So very dark stuff here. And, it's just a very bad sign for, as you guys know, I don't believe Jared Kushner is going to be the one who achieves peace in Gaza. I think the fact that he's involved in this is a very, very bad sign. But, one thing that we saw, he was also involved in the Iran talks. And a big part of that was for PR purposes, to make it seem like we tried everything to make a deal with these, with these Iranians, that it's just impossible, and that's why we had to launch this war. And now it seems like he's setting that up for Gaza, that, we really tried, and Hamas, they just wouldn't give up their weapons. And so now, we tried everything, and now it's back to full scale genocide. So just, again, not just a very bad sign about this whole thing. And Trump did say on Monday, he also did an interview with Fox News where he said that Israel should stop striking Gaza because Hamas agreed to lay down their weapons. Unfortunately, when Trump says things like that, it doesn't actually mean anything. There's been multiple times now where he says Israel should stop bombing Gaza, Israel should stop bombing Lebanon, and they don't. Or in some cases, they actually escalate after he says that, and then he's quiet about it. But listen to this group of people who met with Netanyahu, and it's very bleak that these are the people sitting around and discussing the future of Gaza. Kushner and Netanyahu were joined by Mladenov, who's the envoy, the Gaza envoy for the so-called Board of Peace. But they were also joined by former British Prime Minister Tony Blair and the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. So you have Jared Kushner, Mike Huckabee, Tony Blair, and Benjamin Netanyahu deciding what the future of Gaza should look like. Again, very bleak. The Haaretz report said that there was an agreement on allowing work to begin in Gaza on sanitation infrastructure to prevent disease outbreaks, but that broader reconstruction will still not be allowed. So the people still must be in this miserable state. There's also a preliminary plan that was discussed that would involve Hamas handing over its weapons to a force led by Jasper Jeffries, who is a U.S. Army general, who under the Trump plan for Gaza, he's been designated as the commander of the so-called International Stabilization Force. And the idea is that they're supposed to go into Gaza as the IDF withdraws. But, I just don't see any of this actually happening. The Haaretz report said that Israeli officials expressed skepticism about the disarmament. And there was other reports, Israeli officials saying that there was no breakthrough and that Israel would continue to carry out operations in Gaza. And as we said before, since the so-called ceasefire deal was signed, at least 1,265 Palestinians have been killed by the IDF in Gaza and 4,198 have been wounded. In that same period of time, 5 Israeli soldiers have been killed in Gaza, 4 due to what were clashes between IDF troops and Hamas fighters that were trapped in the IDF-occupied side of Gaza back in October 2025. There was some of them that might have been killed by an unexploded bomb. And then the other one was killed this year by other IDF soldiers in a friendly fire incident. That was back in February. So the idea that, you see this framed in the media that, right now Israel, they're just carrying out strikes if there's an imminent threat. There's been no serious threat against Israel or even IDF troops occupying Gaza for the past 10 months.
And of course, Israel is the occupying force. Israel's existence is the threat and has proven itself to be a threat, not only with mowing the lawn and the Nakba, but the very implantation of it took people's land from the original Palestinians. And to think, talk about adding insult to injury. Again, sending Jared Kushner, who, when Benjamin Netanyahu would come to the United States, not only did he stay in Jared Kushner's room, he slept in Jared Kushner's bed, and Jared Kushner would go sleep like on the couch or in a spare room. That's how close Kushner and Benjamin Netanyahu are. It's just incredible to think that a party to the supplying of Israel's weapons is part of the negotiations with this about Gaza is absurd. It's just ridiculous. It's like the United States being a party to the negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. The United States and NATO have been supplying the weapons to Ukraine. They're not a neutral party. It's just, oh man, it's so crazy. Now, remember, of course, that the Israeli withdrawal from Palestine and Lebanon now both are part of the Iranian demands for peace with the United States. Plus, don't forget, full payment of reparations now for Iran, not just the amount that's owed them from the JCPOA, but full reparation payments, plus the Iranian valid internationally, legally control of the Strait and what they're working out with Oman. Let's talk a little bit more about Iran. There's a great one coming here as Donald Trump for the second time. It's sort of like, the old vinyl album days when you got to skip in a record and the needle would play something and then it would just play it again. And you hear that, it would do the same thing, right? Or it would just go boom, boom, that thing. Well, Trump declared Hormuz U.S. territory. Yes. And then he doubled down on it. At first, it was one of his sarcastic remarks at a press availability. Then he extended the nonsense just to be spiteful. Now, let's show this off, of course, with the good people at RT. Because we've got to spread, now that we got that red light going, the red Russian propaganda. How many hertz is that? Tehran has dismissed the U.S. president's cryptic claim on the strategic waterway as, I know, delusional. Absolutely right. Iran has called U.S. President Donald Trump delusional after he proclaimed the Strait of Hormuz a new U.S. territory. Trump made the claim on the strategic waterway, which remains heavily disrupted due to the ongoing standoff. It's not even a tenth of the traffic now. And wait till you see the effects on the economy and the bond rate, as we said, which is going to have an effect on the housing sales, which is going to have an effect both on people's bottom line and on the employment scene. And it's going to push Donald Trump to try to get the Federal Reserve to drop interest rates even more. It's coming. Clutch, it's coming. The U.S. president shared a map of the strait and its environs with an area circled out and labeled as new territory of the United States. We'll see that in just a second. Is Trump doing his Swami mystical, I'm putting a spell on you, Jedi mind trick? That's it. The Strait of Hormuz is ours. These aren't the droids you're looking for. The exchange, yes. Oh, this is the Post promptly elicited a reaction in Tehran with Deputy Foreign Minister Ghanem Garibabadi condemning Trump's delusions and warning Iran would correct them. At the same time, he commended Trump for managing to correctly write the name of the eternal Persian Gulf, apparently referring to the reported intentions of the U.S. president to rebrand the waterway as the Arab Gulf. It just gets crazy. It is like Idiocracy, right? Well, here's a man who's no idiot, along with another man who's no idiot. It's Daniel Davis with Douglas McGregor. Here's your top 40 hit. Douglas McGregor's great sense of humor at the open of this is awesome. Check it out.
President Trump wants to seize control of the Strait of Hormuz. He says that there are no negotiations going on, except for what Jared Kushner says there are talks going on. So we'll have to wait and see where that's going to go. But more and more evidence coming out of Iran that they are not worried about or even interested in talking. They're just getting ready for more fighting to figure out where this could go and who may be on the right path here. We have back with us today Colonel Douglas McGregor, who, of course, is a defense and foreign policy analyst, former advisor to the Secretary of Defense, and highly decorated combat veteran. Doug, as always, welcome back to our show.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you showed the Trump Peninsula without putting the name Trump there.
It still says Gulf of Oman and Persian Gulf. I'm surprised it didn't say the Trump Gulf because, I don't know. I guess he's already had the Gulf of America.
Well, if you look at the Trump Peninsula, it does look as though it's directed into some sort of large geographical anal cavity.
Well, there is that. I hadn't looked at it from that direction. Apparently, Gary likes that. Not the way I thought.
Large directional anal cavity.
This show was going to start, I have to say.
Well, I think that's about what it amounts to right now for President Trump.
Yeah, and we'll see who's on the receiving end of those kind of things. But it doesn't look like President Trump is really aware of just how much danger I think that we're in right now. Let's see if what you may think of this. This was here just this morning, just less than 2 hours ago. He says that there are no talks or conversations going on or scheduled with the Islamic Republic of Iran. The naval blockade remains in full force and effect. The Hormuz Strait is open and operating.
So let's just pause there. Okay. First of all, he said the exact opposite about 6 hours before that. He said, we're in talks. He said that yesterday. He literally said that yesterday. You might have seen it. We're in talks. We were having some good talks with them. Then internally, he says that there are no talks in addition to contradicting what he earlier said. But inside this, he contradicts himself. He says the naval blockade remains in full force and effect, and the Hormuz Strait is open and operating. I had one of those migraines today. I was able to function. I don't know. This might be aggravating it. Here are Daniel McAdams and Ron Paul queued up to come in to talk about just this and other very major topics.
The Police Officers Association, and he sort of went off script according to the way it looked, at least. And he said, maybe I'll even declare the Strait of Hormuz to be American territory. Went, ha 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 ha. And then when people were saying that this is kind of outrageous to say this, the White House responded, just chill, relax. It's just a joke. It's no big deal. But what did Trump do? If you go to that first clip, he doubled down rather than just let it go, let it brush off as a joke. He drops a map of the Strait of Hormuz as a new U.S. territory. Now go to that next clip and you can see what he wrote on Trump's Truth Social. New U.S. territory, the Strait of Hormuz. So doubling down. That was actually today, this morning at 7 a.m. We can actually even hear there's a video of him saying, why not? Maybe I should just call it American territory. You might want to grab your earpiece, Dr. Paul, and let's listen to Trump in his own words. Your earpiece, Dr. Paul, so we can hear Trump in his own words talking about we're going to just take it. We're just going to take it. Here we go.
Last week you said that you would soon declare the Strait of Hormuz to be a territory of the United States. Could you elaborate?
Well, I think it's a great idea. Yeah, I mean, we control it. We control it with the blockade. We have a blockade. We control it with the blockade. And I like the idea of declaring it a territory. We have total control over the strait. Now, they can be a nuisance.
Over the Strait of Hormuz, President Trump said.
I just want to ask, that little kid over in the couch, was that Marco Rubio? I wasn't sure about.
He says it's a great idea. The main justification, to say that it's his idea. If his idea, and he's going to evaluate, it is a great idea.
Yeah.
But, I still am bewildered by, what the thought process is when we hear this nonsense and where he's coming from. One day it was just sort of an accident, glib, and boy, I think about that, the better idea is it's U.S. territory. So it should wake up people, but sometimes they just laugh about it. It's others who object to it are considered anti-American and unpatriotic. So that's the challenge. But I think if you stick to principle, define the principle, and the politicians run on those principles, that things would be a lot better. So that is the reason why we go through this mechanism of at least, claiming that when you go into a political office, that you'll follow the rules to the best of your ability in the Constitution. But that doesn't seem to help. It turns out to be a joke. You can be punished these days by saying, I'm just following my oath of office. Matter of fact, I used to be able to say, not only do I work hard to follow the Constitution, but I also like to go back on their documents that they say that they put together at the conventions. Their platform. The platform, is a big joke. You never hear it again after the convention. And everybody said, well, what was in your platform? Why did you say these things and you got elected on this? They don't do that. And people go on to something else and said, where am I going to get? Too often it's people who are already on the dole, they're already into corporatism. And it's just how do I get my stuff? How do I approach them? And how do I, get my share of the loot? And that's about what I felt they were doing in Washington and still doing. But the loot is getting smaller. The wealth of this country is getting smaller.
Yeah. Well, there's an increasing gap, between what President Trump says and objective reality. And so if you go to that next one, here's what Trump posted today. Now, there are two things in here that I think are worth noting, Dr. Paul. He says there are no talks or conversations going on or scheduled with the Islamic Republic of Iran. The naval blockade remains in full force and effect. The Hormuz Strait is open and operating. All water mines have been removed or detonated. Thank you for your attention. Well, those two things cannot be both true at the same time. You cannot have a naval blockade of a strait and then say the strait is completely open and operating. So those two things can't exist at the same time. But going to the first one, he said today, there are no talks or conversations. Now go to that next one. This is just yesterday, Dr. Paul. We're not going insane, but he's trying to drive us insane. Just yesterday, Trump said, we have a back channel with the IRGC. We are speaking directly with IRGC officials in Iran. So just yesterday, he says, yes, we're talking to them. Today, he says, we're not talking to them, and the strait is fully open. Go to that next clip, and here's probably the reason. Because oil was starting to get out of hand. As soon as he said it's completely open and free of mines, look how oil prices went down. By the way, Dr. Paul, it's impossible that the mines were cleared because, first of all, we don't have any mine clearers. We don't have them in our Navy, as a matter of fact. And there's been no evidence that mines have been cleared at all. But it had the effect.
It's like I was saying, they can't clear the mines because they can't get in there. I was saying that last week. Trump said the same thing. Besson said the same thing. Well, we cleared the mines. It's open. There are no mines. No, unless you've got like individual Patrick Duffy Man from Atlantis swimmers, or like Day of the Dolphin with George C. Scott with the communicating dolphins, or like, David Brin, the Uplift Wars, and you've been making them intelligent or something like that, and you're sending them out there with Aquaman to control them. You can't get in there because the Iranians will hit you. Did anybody in the room say, hey, isn't the whole point that you're not in there the fact that the Iranians can hit you in there? So how are you getting in there to clear out the mines to open it up if the Iranians are gonna, I don't know. Can I just make some paper airplanes and go home now? I'd like to do some finger painting. It's just so stupid. Please take me back to kindergarten. And of course, Trump threatened Oman Sunday, and he did it again yesterday. Here's Judge Andrew Napolitano and Lieutenant Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski on that one.
Colonel Karen, a pleasure. Thank you very much. What kind of a mind, a brain, threatens an ally, threatens to bomb the you-know-what out of an ally that's been an ally for many years, that is also serving as the mediator of the war between Iran and the United States? I'm speaking, of course, of President Trump threatening to bomb Oman, a threat he made on Sunday and then repeated on Fox News on Monday night.
Wow, I didn't realize he repeated it. Yeah, he lives in an imaginary world. I mean, for Trump, I guess the only history is what he remembers of the 1980s. And that's the only real history that there is, I guess, in Trump's mind. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I guess, apparently the State Department and Pentagon, anybody who is around him, they want him, they either cannot control his mouth, which is possible, or they want him to behave this way because it sows chaos. And we've lost the war. We've lost our bases. We're looking bad. We're getting ready to go into 40 trillion of debt. Maybe the chaos is what Trump is good for. It kind of, we're focused on him, and we don't see all these other terrible things that are happening. Some of which are Trump's fault and some are not. But, he's kind of he's like a magician's trick, keep your eye on Trump and the crazy things he'll say tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that that is the case. And I want to get some of your opinions. I've been looking at some of the comments, which are just superb. They're just awesome. I also want to mention, Ossoff is getting a lot of attention, both from the judge and from others, as it looks like for the Democrats, he is going to be a very strong contender for the presidential nomination. And it's interesting because he really has gotten there off of, again, this sort of extra energy off of the anti-war, pro-peace movement that blends into stop sending the money to kill people over there, spend the money here on X, Y, or Z that I prefer for the welfare state or whatever, right? And mixed into that, again, to be as fair as possible to the left wingers, is a sort of anti-corporate mentality. This idea that capitalism is actually what we know is mercantilism, otherwise known as fascism, crony capitalism, corporatism, that sort of thing. And if corporations are going to exist, then therefore there should be this other balancing act where the government participates to help people in the welfare state because the corporations are going to exploit people, and all these different types of things get mixed into it. So again, to pare it down on the United States constitutional level, which unfortunately is not where Mr. Ossoff stands. He stands on recognizing a genocide, saying it's not right to be funding it, and then breaching the Constitution by not discussing the fact that it's not constitutional to go and engage in warfare, to send these weapons to Israel and the genocide and things like that, and to engage in these attacks on Iran, but instead to talk about what he wants to do with the money domestically, which also is unconstitutional. So any strict discussion of what is enumerated as the so-called powers that the founding fathers claimed over future generations, of course, unethically, immorally, and unreasonably, any discussion even of that is not part of the discussion. So this is the man who is really starting to scare a lot of MAGA people.
Promised peace and gave us war.
Let me just go back just a second.
Summary of Trump's more absurd statements made since he started the war. Chris, cut number 12.
He also promised peace and gave us war. Iran still has its uranium. Hormuz is still closed, and it was all lies. On day one of the war, listen to this, day one, the president said the war was, quote, ahead of schedule. Ahead of schedule. On day 4, he declared victory. Today is day 170. Listen to this. On day 9 of the war, the incompetent Pete Hegseth guaranteed Iranian surrender. On day 14, he claimed Iran's military had been destroyed. On day 40, he said every single objective had been achieved. That was 4 months ago. They've lied nonstop about this war like they lie about everything. And they know they're lying, but they lie and they keep lying anyway, because in this White House, they view persistence in deceit as a virtue. And there's something uniquely despicable about lying a nation into war. Treating citizens as fools and those who serve as pawns.
Almost a Karen Kwiatkowski phrase, persistence in deceit. Listen, I don't agree with everything he says, but he was right on the mark in that speech.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what needs to be said. And you know, I'm sorry to say that could have been said 25 years ago too. I mean, we were lied into war in Iraq. We've been lied into war for pretty much every time. So, but the fact that he's articulating that in a very kind of matter-of-fact way, eloquent way, it's good. It's good. People will hear that, and they need to hear it because we're paying for it. We're paying for it in ways that we can't even imagine. I mean, we have no friends left. We're broke. American people are broke, and yet we're still paying for war. And we're still tolerating these kinds of leaders. And it goes beyond party, obviously.
Now, I just want to pause it because I think no matter how many dollops the Mark Levins and the Jeff Kooners and the Sean Hannitys of the world try to pile on top of their plate of crap that they try to use to depict these people as communists, the people who might be considered social democrats or whatever, as somehow so alien from people like Hannity, from people like Levin, from people like Donald Trump, as to depict those people as some sort of ancient insectoid manifestations of Stalin's Soviet Union, driving their Volgas across Georgia with Ossoff inside. That no matter how many times they do that, as this election approaches, they can't get traction for it, with a few exceptions of only the most devoted MAGA, I won't say Kool-Aid drinkers, but drinkers of the elixir, the magic elixir, to make them forget reality. Because these people are collectivists. The Democrats are socialists. It doesn't matter whether you apply a term social democrat or you just go with Democrats. They're socialists. And most of the Republicans are socialists. They are also fascists on both sides. The United States government right now is a mixture of Rousseauian socialism, Italian-German fascism, and Soviet Marxism. That's what it is. It's a corporatist, fascist, collectivist welfare state that caters to people individually for welfare, caters to political blocs of states with welfare, caters to interest groups with corporate welfare, and bleeds off of everybody with a centralized banking system that was one of the 10 planks of Marx's Communist frigging manifesto. So to hear Sean Hannity or Jeff Cooner or Mark Levin describe their political opponents on the same wing of the bird, that's the predator that's coming to take your livelihood and your rights away, to hear them depict themselves as somehow different is laughable. It's absurd. It's patently absurd. It's provably absurd. All you have to do is start running down their policies. So do you support handing weapons to the socialist collectivist state of Israel? Yeah. Handing them money? Yeah. Do you support, let's say tariffs? Yeah. Tariffs, are those gamed? Yeah. Did you support Donald Trump's Operation Warp Speed? Yeah. Did you know that was a fascist collectivist handoff to the pharmaceutical industry? Well, yeah. Do you support, handing money to the states for highway funds if they do the bidding of the Trump administration? Do you support ICE? Do you support the breaches of the Bill of Rights because you somehow magically distinguish that the Bill of Rights is, even though it's an operational statement that the government shall operate this way without exception as to on whom it's applied, you're going to have carve-outs, which can be turned into bigger and bigger and bigger carve-outs. Do you like the Patriot Act? Do you like the idea that guys are still in Guantanamo after 20 years without getting habeas? Do you like ICE having electric gloves? Do you like the federal government buying warehouses to put people into them? Because if you do, Mr. Hannity, you're a collectivist fascist. And you've got nothing to stand on if you're critical of social democrats. Do you grab that reality? Because it's running away very rapidly. You long ago showed people you had no integrity when you, of course, spoke to me on the phone, as probably you showed it many other times, not just with me. When I said, hey, there's no declaration of war against Iraq, and you said, it depends what your meaning of the word war is. Bill Clinton. Thank you, Mr. Hannity. That was super cool. It revealed a lot to those people listening with some alacrity in your audience. Let's talk about the West Bank, everybody. And then we're going to head over to Rumble, check out your comments. Here, check this out. Like the Nazis, like some of Stalin's goons, that should be Stalin's goons, the Israelis wrote numbers on the skin of people whom they were kidnapping in the West Bank. Mario Nawfal's team has this one, everybody. You got it. IDF soldiers were caught writing numbers on Palestinian suspects, wink, wink, during a West Bank raid. That would be a raid in an area that the Israelis are trying to invade, and they further encroached into over the past quarter of the year. Photos show people marked with numbers on their arms and heads during an operation in Kabatia near Jenin. The army confirmed the marking happened. Then said commanders told the soldiers how serious it was and that lessons were drawn. I just, look at this dude. Look at this dude. What in the world? Like, you just sit there saying, seriously? Now let's look at Lebanon. Oh, look, a war crime. Another one. Israel just blew up the public water reservoir in Mansouri, South Lebanon, cutting off the town's water supply. Not a military target. This is confirmed. A water reservoir, essential civilian infrastructure in Lebanon. You know, that part that's not Israel, even though Israel actually has no defined boundaries because it keeps expanding like a cancer.